So Sheila began studying tarot and esoterica in 1980, and as she puts it, only discovered dowsing in 2007 when Suzanne Schwartz invited her to the White Mountain Dowser chapter meeting. Sheila finds sharing metaphysical arts from many disciplines and traditions to be exciting and enlightening, and she states that integrating new arts for effective use in our energetic toolbox is a stimulating way to keep your practice fresh and growing. Dowsing and tarot together enhance the experience. So, thank you, Sheila. Sheila.
Thank you, Mary. Welcome, everyone. If it is possible for you to raise a hand, if you have ever seen tarot or done tarot before, please do. Everybody has that little hand at the top. But it looks like we have one. Could be more, and we're just not seeing it. That's okay.
The raise your hand is on the bar on the right-hand side, just underneath the chat. You'll see the little hand.
Oh, good. Good. A few more. Wonderful, wonderful. And wonderful for the people who don't know anything about it, too, because this is a review of the basics of tarot, and it is also an opportunity to learn how to use tarot with dowsing. We're going to do a brief PowerPoint, and then we're going to do real-life reading. If you have a specific question that isn't too personal to you, then enter it into chat, and we may be able to do a reading for that. It could happen. When we look at tarot and dowsing, they seem like very different things. But the frameworks are all the same. As dowsers, we learn can I, may I, should I. We learn whatever system you use, be consistent. If your yes is one way, always have it be that way. It's perfectly all right to say, I don't know. You wouldn't believe how many times a day I have to say that. Try to ask a question that can be answered simply. Have a time frame in mind if it's a future question, and never use medical terminology when reading for someone else. One of the first things I learned when I first started reading is mind your own business. Don't ask about other people without their consent. The exception to that would be if you have a child or a pet or someone you're concerned about, asking how you can help them. That's not invading their privacy. And choose for yourself ethical guidelines. I think the 15 Hints for Dowsing has some really good ones if you don't have one already. My motto ever since I started teaching tarot 30 or so, 40 years ago, was guard the mysteries. Constantly reveal them. The only risk is that they could be lost. There are many esoteric systems where you have to have an initiation, you have to swear oaths, and I never got into one of those systems because from my point of view, those who cannot understand will not understand. So the only real danger is that you keep your secrets and then they're lost. And I absolutely love the philosophy of Goethe. He said, all the knowledge that I possess, everyone else can acquire, but my heart is all my own. Even if you're using someone else's system, it's going to be your system because you are unique in all times and places. Let's talk about tarot in relating to dowsing. I believe it's all the same energy, and there are many ways to channel that energy. We've seen over this convention so many different approaches to bringing that divine into our lives, into the box of space and time. The difference is that tarot deals with archetypes and patterns, not manifestations. Tarot provides a material representation of factors in the now. While studying tarot, you also learn numerology, astrology, all kinds of symbols. The more you learn, the deeper your readings can be. Also, it's pretty and it stimulates your creativity. Tarot is compatible with spiritual and religious principles. This particular deck is based on the Judeo-Christian ethics. If you're a Buddhist or a Taoist, you would have a different set of tarot cards, but they would still work. Another nice thing about tarot is that a layout can be documented for future reference. I take pictures of my layouts, and then I have a folder where I can go through and analyze them again after I learn new things. Tarot has a very rich history, and it draws on many metaphysical traditions. I cannot tell you all the history of tarot in this brief a time, but this particular deck was created back in the 1800s by members of the Order of the Golden Dawn. It has graphic images that help stimulate your intuitive awareness, which everyone has all the time. You can create layouts for any kinds of questions. There are some established ones, and you can just make them up. My friend and I once made up Freudian tarot layouts, where you go into your ego and your id, look at your left brain and your right brain, and solve personal problems. We just did it impulsively at the time, but it worked even when we were simultaneously doing readings for the same question with two different decks. The science fiction fantasy tarot deck and the Rider-Waite. The question is the question, the answer is the answer. The tarot deck is organized to show the journey of your soul from manifestation to enlightenment. The Joker, it's sometimes called the Zero, shows a figure about to step off a cliff, heedless, carrying everything it needs, not the least bit concerned about diving into manifestation. You might think of it as the soul before it chooses to be born. And the 21, the world, shows that culmination of your spiritual enlightenment, having incorporated all the universal principles. The Minor Arcana has 4 suits, and they very much look like playing cards. Ace through 10, and the face cards. In any system, something is going to represent the 4 quarters of nature. So the wands are fire, that's your creative energy. Cups are water, spirit and emotions. Swords are air, intellect, and pentacles are earth, sometimes misinterpreted as being money. That's just green energy. Here are some examples of the Major Arcana cards. Most of them are individuals. They represent principles. See the Fool there? Not even the least bit concerned about dropping off that cliff with his little familiar, kind of like my little Gumby. Every single card in the tarot has a numerical meaning. In the Major Arcana, it applies to principles of the universe. In the Minor Arcana, it applies to the domains of human activity and interest. So here you see the pentacles, work, work, work. The wands, my fire is dimmed, I've been working too hard, fighting too long. The 9 of Swords, one of my favorite representations, that is the dark night of the soul. 2s are ambivalence, balance or lack of it. And then the face cards are stages of maturity in that domain of human interest. Sixes are often gate cards, but there are other gate cards also. And that's why I have close up the 2 sixes. In each case, you see a figure giving something to another figure. And when these come up, you always have a choice for yourself or for the person you're reading. Are you the giver or the receiver? That can have a big impact because understanding that helps you move through the gate to another level. What does your gate look like? When I talk about gates, you probably have an automatic image in your head. Is it misty? Is it a permeable membrane? Dim, clear, appealing, or scary? Those images in your mind help inform the reading because it's stimulated by those archetypal pictures. Now we'll move to a layout. The Celtic cross is what I call the workhorse of layouts. It gives you 10 cards that represent factors inherent in your current situation. You can use a significator, a card that you pull to represent the person or the question. That doesn't count in the 10. Simply gives you a place to start. You can choose the significator based on the nature of the person's question, their physical condition, or their appearance. I don't ever want to know the person's question in advance, so I have a technique I'll show you when we do a sample reading for how to find the significator. This is an example of the reading I did for the article that I wrote that will appear in the ASD Digest and went out in the White Mountain Dowsers newsletter. My question was, what should I focus on for this article? The answer I got is, anything is fair game. Everybody's interested in everything. I'm not going to go through this reading with you. The conclusion was that your creativity needs to be unleashed. Excuse me. To get a coherent answer, you need to have a focused question. In tarot, as in life, the quality of answers you get depends on the clarity of the questions you ask. With dowsing or with tarot or any other divinatory system, ask a question that can be answered in this moment, considering the factors affecting the outcome in this moment. When you do a tarot reading, this is a way to ask, what are the factors affecting the outcome I'm asking about? The clearer what you want is, the clearer the answers will be. And I love the journalistic questions. Who is with you? Who is involved? Is it just you? Or is it a group of people? What, where, when, why, and how? If you can have that vision in your mind really clear as you are shuffling your cards, then the cards are going to be able to give you a much more coherent answer. Although sometimes the answer is ask a different question. And then you reset to default, just like unplugging your computer and turning it back on when it gets jammed up. Try again. These are some of my favorite books to help you get started. And I'm going to use this original Complete Guide to the Tarot by Eden Gray, which came with my birthday gift of tarot cards and a book way back in the fall of 1978. Since you're going to get a download, I'm not going to go through all these books, but I will mention that vibrational medicine, although it is not specific to this system or to any other divinatory system, was one of the most comprehensive scientific integrations of what they had the technology to perceive at the time that related to all kinds of healing. I love that book so much. And now we're going to unpresent and start getting real. Has anyone come up with a question that they would want to share with everyone else? Nope. Well, let's generate a group question then. What I've been hearing a lot this week is, how can we help to heal the chaos, the madness, the friction, and the pain in the world today? That's a very vague question. Let's get really specific. How can we, dowsers, and other metaphysical students here at this convention best contribute to healing the world today? I'm going to move my camera so it points down at my workspace so that you can see what the cards are doing. Now, tell me if anyone cannot see that clearly. Got it?
It looks
Tarot
good.
cards.
It looks good, Sheila.
Yeah, tarot cards usually come in these great big giant sizes that are supposed to be more, whoop, I didn't do that on purpose. Can you turn that off, please?
I don't know why that's on. Let's see what we can do.
I'll do it. Never mind.
I got it.
I got it.
Oh, I think we got there
Okay.
at the same time.
So that's the normal size tarot deck. And this is my teeny little everyday work deck, because this is how big my workspace is, about the size of a placemat on my desk. By the way, that's the same deck I've been using since 1980, wrapped up in a polyester scarf, in a fabric travel bag. I guess the Emperor wants to jump out. This is the Emperor. It is the 4 in the Major Arcana. Seems kind of blurry. We're going to take that into account. Always shuffle your cards at least 3 times to randomize them and change from whatever the previous reading was. While you are shuffling the cards, you are thinking and focusing on your question, envisioning all those factors. And remember that our question is, how can we, the people in this community, each best contribute to healing the world today? By the way, I have never been able to shuffle playing cards as playing cards, but I can shuffle tarot cards. Go figure. Then with your left hand, you cut the cards into 3 piles. You can look at them and see which one looks more interesting or fun to you, or you can douse and choose, let the pendulum choose. And when I do this, well, it's pretty clear this time. Sometimes it'll go wandering off that way or wandering off that way. You're going to put the cards back together again with your left hand. Even if you're left-handed, the bicameral mind is still divided. My way of getting the significator for a reading for someone else, or if I'm not clear about my question, is to fan the cards. And on this surface, it's a little bit difficult because it's very slippery. Just spread them out as best you can and let the person choose a card. Which card represents them or their question? In this case, we're going to douse it. That just takes as long as it takes. Oh, Okay, and I can see where the point is. It's aiming for that card right there. That's the significator. That's the Knight of Pentacles. The face cards can represent a person, but they also can represent the qualities of that person or the qualities of the suit. First, I'm going to go through the positions and what the positions mean. Then we'll go back and analyze each card. The next card, this is the number 1, is the atmosphere surrounding the question. The cards are upright in relation to the reader, not to the querent, not to the person being read. So to me, the Five of Pentacles is reversed. This is a card that crosses the atmosphere and represents a challenge or a solution, what escalates or diminishes the atmosphere in relation to this question. Whether it is pointing to the future or the past can be relevant to the reading. And this is what is below the question. I take this to either mean the farther past, the subconscious, or a childhood influence. It is below it and is feeding information, feeding energy into the atmosphere. This position is the past, the nearer past, the more immediate past that is either driving energy into or taking energy away from the current atmosphere. And this is the card above. That's 13. The card Death. Be aware that there is no physical death in the tarot. That is the death of the ego, so the spirit can rise again. And this is the future, the overall tendency of the situation. The card above is what you might become aware of in the near future. I say 2 seconds to 2 days, or right this minute as we're doing this reading. Over here to the right of the reader is the staff. This is your self-image or your subconscious in relation to this question. This is the perception of you by others who are relevant to the situation. And again, to this specific situation. Hopes, fears, and expectations. And the key, the culminator, the card that is supposed to make it all make sense. Many, many times I've done a reading and the whole thing is a complete mystery to me until that card comes up. That's a lucky day. Try not to be like the doctor who's examining the patient and muttering and saying, interesting. Wow, look at that. Oh, no. If you're reading for someone else, give them the peace of mind of keeping those feelings to yourself until you get around to reading them, because you don't want to get the person anxious. Complicated though this may seem, if you have a basic book like the Eden Gray book, you can just go right ahead and open the book and read the interpretations. When you first start out, it's not a bad idea. As you work your way through, doing more and more tarot readings, have reactions from more and more people, eventually you will imprint on the cards what that card means to you. In the book it says, a man of upright nature who accepts responsibility. He is laborious and patient. The card can also mean utility, serviceableness, trustworthiness, the coming or going of an important matter connected with money. Since our question is about how we, as metaphysical practitioners, can help contribute to peace in the world, to the healing of the world, I'm going to take this that we are of upright nature, to accept responsibility, we are laborious and patient. I'm going to take service-oriented, trustworthy. It's important. I think that's a pretty good significator. The Five of Pentacles is the atmosphere. You're seeing it right side up. I'm seeing it upside down. When you look at it right side up, you see two figures shambling through the snow, one of them obviously impaired, using crutches, and a bright glowing window, which probably is the stained glass window of a church. But they're on the outside, not invited in. There's no open door there. The interesting thing is when you reverse this card, it unleashes all the joy and all the opportunity, even though you are not inside the conventional structures. In this case, it would be perceived as the church. Even though you are outside of the confines of that institutional spiritual community, when you reverse this card, it means that you have found the resources, the companionship, and you see those crutches are wands, the fiery creativity, and the snow, even though it seems static, that's actually water, which represents cups and spirit. The atmosphere surrounding this question is a release from the perception of self-imprisonment by the institutions that do not accept what you do. The Eight of Wands can mean a journey unfulfilled or a journey completed, whether it is coming to Earth now or later. The energy of these wands is facing to the future, where, again, the Seven is reversed to me. And I'll give you a little preview of that. If it's right side up, it's continuing to fight and defend your position as king of the hill. When you reverse it, it's a cessation. It's a letting go of the fighting. And that's a good sign to me too. Beneath it, in the farther past, or fundamentally, the source, the wellspring of the energy relating to this question is the Ace of Pentacles. And the Ace of Pentacles, if you can see the picture, that brings you to the understanding of the universe is offering every good thing, every resource, every material resource, the energy, the earth, giving you that source and that sustenance that you need, that's underneath this atmosphere of releasing from the self-imposed prison of believing that you're on the outside. In the nearer past, we have the Eight. And look at the symmetry of the eights. The two eights reversed. Right side up, which you're seeing, the Eight of Cups represents having a deep sadness and regret and walking away from every good thing, walking away from spirit, walking away from heart, walking away from that love. It's reversed. See the moon in multiple phases? When it's reversed, again, that diminishes that impact, reverses it, and says, in the near past, you stop turning away from that energy, accepting it. accepting the energy that the universe is offering below you. And now we're coming to what's above. When you get that card reversed again in relation to the reader, it means a spiritual awakening, a release from all the confinements. Did we just realize this in this reading 2 seconds ago? That the atmosphere is, we are now free to act. We are now free to send our energy out to the world and contribute to the letting go of the king of the hill, battling, fighting energy. What's our self-image down here is the Queen of Wands reversed. Remember, wands are the energy, the fire, the creativity. Reversed is a diminishment of that, an insecurity, and that's our self-image. That's our subconscious. That's what we need to let go of right now in this reading. How others are seeing us is the 5. 5s are always change, sometimes conflict, but always change, always evolution. How others are seeing us in relation to this question. And I have to keep saying in relation to this question because it's all that can be contained in these little pieces of cardboard. So you see that the person is focusing on the spilled cups and not paying attention to what still remains good and beautiful and loving in their life, needing to change that focus. I could get so into this card. Let me come back to it. You see the river, the water, the mountains of wisdom, the structures of humanity, all those things that this person cannot turn and journey towards without realizing that what they've lost, while it may have been important to them, is not all that there is. And it's time to turn around, pick up the cups that still remain, and make that journey to the mountains of wisdom. Hopes, fears, and expectations, that's that position. Another 8. Love this card. This is the person who has been, you would call it the journeyman, practicing, 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 making pentacles over and over and over again, doing their practice over and over again. Are we ready to graduate? Are we ready to say that we can achieve mastery and go out into the world? We're not just producing in the factory model world. We now can get up and take that show on the road. By the way, this is a 7, not an 8, but I guess I was getting a preview of that 8. And the key that is supposed to make it all make sense, which is the Knight of Swords reversed. Let's go back to that book. We started with a knight. We're ending with a knight. It's justice. In Eden Gray, it says, extravagance given to braggadocio, tyranny over the helpless, let it be man or animal, a person always ready to start a fight. Destruction may come about through the knight's activities. This is the key that is supposed to make all the other cards make sense. And I'm going to quote Robert Egby from his geophysical stress talk the other day. Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't believe what people say about how wonderful you are. We have work to do, but it doesn't mean that we are the Messiah. There is the Messiah in each of us. That's something I learned a long time ago. Because it is distributed among all of us, no one of us is the only important thing. We all have to cooperate. We all have to share. We all have to work together to accomplish that goal of helping to heal the world. Now, I need people to ask questions or participate or disagree or get deeper into it. Who would like to talk?
I guess, Sheila, what I'm hearing is that a good representation of what some of the problems are. We see what's missing, we see what's lost, but there's also the kind of path forward with that ability to do the work that needs to be done, to be present.
Yes.
Is that what you're?
So, well, when you do a tarot reading, to me it's different than dowsing in that it's static. Like, I have taken these cards and I have laid them out, and they're not going anywhere. I can spend as much time as I want understanding them, looking things up, figuring it out, playing with it. What I've been doing recently is taking my pendulum and spinning it around and asking, which card should I focus on to really understand what's going on here? And I'm keeping my hand really still and not looking at it. And it's focusing pretty clearly. I didn't move my hand. The pendulum did that. It's focusing pretty clearly on the Ace of Pentacles. Regardless of the rest of the cards, and regardless of my interpretation of them in that position, in this reading, in this moment, the thing that I need to focus on is that Ace of Pentacles of the world, the universe, the earth, offering me that boundless energy so that I can do the work I need to do. So you asked me if the Page of Swords reversed. It was reversed to me, the person who's reading, not to you. If it had been reversed to you, then it would mean a dashing, brave young man, though he may be domineering, has a clean heart, and is full of courage. The card may mean the coming or going of misfortune. I took it as being a caution. But we can take, this is a wonderful technique, we can take that card and do a whole separate reading and say, what do you mean by that? Make that card the significator and then ask a different question. Did that answer you?
There's another question in the chat from Alberto about, do you always use that setting and number of cards, or different settings, and are using a less number of cards?
That's the Celtic Cross. As I said at the beginning, it is the workhorse of layouts where you can get a pretty comprehensive sense of where you are in time and in relation to the different forces going on around you. But let's say you want to ask a more material kind of a question. So you can say, should I eat hot dogs for lunch? Cut the deck. You can lay out the cards. By the way, manipulating the cards, I take the card from here and flip it over. There's no reason I do it that way, except that it works nicely. I've been doing it for 40 years. And as long as I am consistent about my technique, I will keep getting answers. You just saw me shuffle the cards, right? But I didn't shuffle them too much. So Alberto, this is another typical classic layout, just 5. Depending on the nature of your question, you can go from left to right in time. You can ask, what are the relationships among these factors? You can pick as many cards as you want. You can make up as many different layouts as you like. In various books, there are very complicated systems, how to interpret the cards. Let me show you a little bit about. Alberto, did that answer your question?
There's another question about, do you make sure you start off with all cards facing the same direction before you start a reading?
Absolutely. No, absolutely not. In fact, after I've been doing a bunch of readings, I will reverse them. I will mess them around. Some people can't shuffle, so I have them do 52 card pickup basically to just spread them around. And some people do a really good job, as long as you're gentle with the cards and you don't break them. The important part is that you randomize the cards while you're thinking about your question. I have no idea how your mind can put the cards into a specific order so you get a coherent reading. I don't know if anybody understands that. They're just little pieces of cardboard with pictures on them. And yet, when you do this time after time, you get really coherent readings. Yes. Was that Mary, MC?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, do you know of any human activity where people don't have different opinions? The way I learned was that when you reverse the card, it either diminishes the impact, reverses it, or releases it, depending on the position it's in and which card it is. Some people say it doesn't matter whether they are up or down. But to me, it matters because I'm doubling the number of interpretations I might get. Think about it. I have 78 cards plus 2 blanks, and I'll talk about the blanks in a minute. Then I have those 10 cards plus the significator, and the meanings of the cards change in relation to the cards they're near, or before, or after. The number of possible meanings in a tarot reading is in the hundreds of thousands of variations. I don't want to give up the richness of doubling the possible interpretations. So I stick with the tradition that reversing it makes it mean something different. How are we on time?
Oh, I was just going to interrupt you. We are at 3 o'clock, so another 15 minutes.
Okay. I'd really love to do another.
Can I build on that question for a second? Is that, so
Yeah,
even
please.
if cards will turn up in the position they need to, just, you don't have to start off with them all going in the same way or anything. They will, they'll turn up as they need to turn up for the message.
Right. And the more randomized they are between people's readings, the better you are. Or if you're doing multiple readings for a person, you really, really need to try to randomize them. And one of the things that happens is that a card is really, really persistent about coming up for a given person or for a given question. And no matter how you randomize them, it will still keep coming up. Or particular sets of cards will still keep coming up. Even if you take them and put them into different places in the deck before you shuffle, they may still all keep coming up together. I see a hand up. Who is that?
Hang on, let me see if I can find that.
One hand raised.
All right, let me unmute Maria. Go ahead.
Hi, Maria.
Oh, hi. I had my hand up in reference to that last question, so I just put it in the chat box. And I think you've clarified it in what you said, but that last card, you explained that it was reversed to us, and so your reading was the opposite or a diminishing. So I understood what you said.
No, it was reversed to me.
Yes, it was reversed to you, so to us it was, you read it. I wasn't sure whether you had read it reversed to, I mean, with that understanding.
Right.
I wasn't clear on that, but I think you made that clear.
Good, thank you. The reason I was doing the readings from this book is because this may seem like a really complicated thing to learn. Many of the disciplines that I've seen in this convention have a lot of technicalities to them also. It's whatever book you get that you like, when you are in the store buying it, if you're reading the reviews or reading excerpts from the book, finding a teacher or a book that has values that are consistent and compatible with your own values is really important. Once you learn a basic system, is that hand up just because you don't know how to put it down, Maria? Or is it a different hand? We'll see.
It just,
Yeah.
I got it. That was me. I lowered it.
It's okay. Think of it like ballroom dancing. Most people learned a little bit of the box step at some point in their life. But when you look at the real experienced ballroom dancers, it never looks like they're walking in a box. Because once you get down the fundamental patterns and rhythms of something, you then make it your own and do it how it works for you. Once you have a relationship with the cards and you've interpreted them many, many times for yourself and other people, the cards begin to mean things to you that might not be in someone else's book. So it's a very personal thing. I think just like dowsing, I'm really beginning to appreciate my pendulum, and now I need to get different kinds because I've learned that it may be storing energy that I don't want. I'm going to turn back to my face so I can see you guys. You can turn on your camera.
I have a question for you. You talked about not wanting to know the person's question ahead of time. And so I was just wondering then, with the cards having the possibility of different meanings, how you can focus that for the person's question.
Well, wow, that's a really good question. I focus it based on their significator and their atmosphere. When I pull the significator, when I say, okay, what's the question we need to ask today? And I pull that card, it turns out to be the Wheel of Fortune. Anything is possible. Sometimes the person will say to me, that makes no sense to me. We will go back through the reading, and if at the end of the reading it makes no sense, then I'll say, let's just ask the question a different way. Because the cards can only answer a question that's coherent. Yes, Maria, the significator represents the querent, the person asking the question, or the question itself. The difference being, if it's a question that relates to that person, their nature, their personality, who they are, their essential identity, that's different than if they're asking about a job thing, which would probably be a pentacle, or a creative thing, that would be the wands. Or if they should, I once had a wonderful reading for a young man at a science fiction convention, and he got every major card practically, and it was very traumatic and very dramatic. And I thought, oh my God, is this guy going to start the apocalypse or what? When we got all done with the reading, which he said made sense to him, I said, I have to ask, what was your question? And he said, I was asking if I should change my major at college. Okay, that reminded me that the dimension of the question, the importance of the question, is in relation to that person. If they're going to ask a question about their love life, again, they may get an incoherent answer. If they ask something like I asked, like the second reading I ever did, was, will Bill decide to marry me in the next 6 months? And the card said, ask him. And I went in and asked him, and he said, I don't know. Typical guy, right? So I wasn't going to get a coherent answer from that. But if I'm asking, how can I learn whether this is the right person for me, that's a different kind of question completely. So the significator is just a starting point to help you understand the person's question. Maria, did that answer it?
Oh,
okay.
I got a hand raised again. We have another hand raised. I apologize.
It's okay. Liberate
Alberta,
them.
you had your hand raised?
Or was that from before?
Oh, hang on. Hold on. I have to unmute so that they can ask the question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, yes. My question is, I am always interested in see how you interpret one specific card, which is the magician, the card of the magician. How you see it in both ways, the up and when it's reverse.
The magician is the first card after the fool. And it represents the person having acquired the tools and the knowledge to manifest the energy, the magic, and use it effectively. And you might think it's kind of odd to have that be number one in the deck, but having the tools, the information, and the skills to do a thing does not mean you're doing it with full spiritual enlightenment. It just means you've basically got all the equipment that you need. If you were to get that reversed in a reading, I would interpret that as there's more you need to learn. You don't know it all yet. You don't necessarily have full mastery of your tools.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, you could ask a follow-on question if you want. I think we have.
When I have here the number 9 and 10 card that you put on the side, which is
right?
the meaning of the number 9 and number 10. So be the bottom, the two in the middle on the side.
Okay. Now, this isn't necessarily going to the numerology of it. If you're talking about in the minor arcana, when you progress, accumulating your abilities within each domain, within wands is that creative ability, you've been perfecting your art. In pentacles, it's the actual production of something. The nines in general mean that you are still in the journeyman stage of that suit, that you're still working on it, often feeling like, oh my God, is this ever going to end? Am I not done yet? When you reverse it, it's a release from saying, okay, yes, I know how to do this thing. Maybe not perfect, but I'm going to move forward to achieve that mastery.
Perfect. Thank you
Did
very
you
much.
mean, somebody just asked, did you mean in the Celtic layout or the card
Yes,
itself?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, we just have a few more minutes. If there's any other questions that have come up. Oh, do you see that? I can read it. If someone buys a set of tarot cards, is it okay if they're used or the energy of the previous owners be carried over into the cards and be an interfering factor?
I absolutely love that question, Maria. I think I said in my workshop the other day that the tradition is you have a silk scarf to wrap your cards in because silk is a good psychic insulator. By the way, if you have trouble sleeping, get a silk scarf and wrap it around your head because that will insulate you from other people's dreams. That's a whole other conversation. To my mind, if you are centered, you know who you are, and you work with your cards appropriately, you're going to tune your cards to you. If you're not secure enough in yourself to pick up a tool and use it, then you need to learn a whole bunch about shielding and clearing and protection. I didn't talk too much at the beginning about when you start doing a reading, set your boundaries, make sure that you're protected, that the person you're reading for is protected, that other people's energy or other, and people call it entities, don't come invading your space. It's the same thing with the cards. If you get a deck of used cards, I've gotten many of them, then you just spend time with the cards and let them know that they're yours now and it's okay and they're safe and you can clear any previous experiences just like you would clear anything else. And that's a good thing that dowsing is for. I mean, I just do it with intention, but now that I've got my dowsing tool, it's a lot faster. Any other questions?
It's been really, really great, very good information. And Sheila, were you planning on going over into the lounge or not?
I can do that today. I don't have another thing after this.
And
So I'll go into room 2.
okay. And just a brief reminder, there is now a closing ceremony at 4:45 in the Thursday night with Beverly Rubik, which is a separate sign up. So thank you. Thank you, Sheila. That was great. I enjoyed it a lot and thought it was a great reading with a great question.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you once again for being a great moderator.
Well,
BRM. Bye-bye.
thank you.